Nobody loves you. Entire town mocked an obese girl. Then the mountain man said, Enough! The Montana Territory sun blazed overhead in the summer of 1884 as the town of Sweetwater prepared for its annual Independence Day celebration. The main square buzzed with activity, vendors setting up stalls, children running wild, and families gathering for what should have been a joyful occasion. For 21-year-old Josephine "Josie" Whitfield, it was a day she'd been dreading for weeks. Josie stood behind the bakery stall, her substantial frame hidden as much as possible behind displays of pies and cakes she'd spent 3 days preparing. She was the town baker's assistant, though assistant was a generous term for someone who did most of the actual work while receiving a fraction of the credit and an even smaller fraction of the pay. "Josie, stop hiding back there and help customers," Mrs. Paulson, the bakery owner, snapped from across the square where she was chatting with other merchants' wives. Josie stepped forward reluctantly, her worn blue dress straining at the seams despite her best efforts to let it out. She'd learned long ago that no matter what she wore or how she presented herself, people would see only one thing: her size. "I'll take 2 apple pies," said Mr. Henderson, avoiding her eyes as he spoke. Not cruel exactly, just uncomfortable, as if looking directly at her might somehow be contagious. "That'll be 50 cents, sir." As Josie wrapped the pies, she heard the familiar sound of mocking laughter approaching. Her stomach nodded. Please, not today, not in front of everyone. But prayers were rarely answered in Sweetwater. "Well, well, if it isn't the bakery whale," Danny Mitchell's voice rang out, deliberately loud to attract attention. He was 23, handsome in that thoughtless way young men could be, and had made tormenting Josie his personal entertainment since they were children. His 3 friends, Cole, Brett, and Tommy, flanked him, already grinning in anticipation of the show. "I'm working, Danny. Please leave me alone," Josie said quietly, keeping her eyes on the pies she was arranging. "Leave you alone? But we're customers. Ain't that right, boys? We want to buy some of Josie's famous pies. Question is—" He raised his voice even louder. "Did she leave any for us, or did she eat them all herself?" Laughter rippled through the nearby crowd. People who'd been chatting moments before now turned to watch, some uncomfortable, most amused. Josie was, after all, Sweetwater's designated entertainment. "That's enough, Danny," Mr. Henderson said half-heartedly, but he was already walking away, unwilling to involve himself further. "Enough? We're just getting started." Danny climbed onto a nearby crate, making himself the center of attention. "Folks, I've been thinking. We all know Josie here eats enough for 3 people, right? So I did some calculations. Based on her size, I estimate she consumes approximately—" "Stop it!" Josie's voice was so quiet it was barely audible. "What was that? Speak up, Josie, though I guess it's hard to speak when your mouth's always full." More laughter. Josie felt her face burning, tears threatening. She'd endured this her entire life. The mockery, the cruelty disguised as jokes, the complete dehumanization. But it never got easier. If anything, it got harder each time, wearing down her soul like water on stone. "I said stop," she repeated, slightly louder, but her voice cracked with emotion, undermining whatever authority she'd tried to project. "Oh, she's crying. Guys, we made the fat girl cry." Danny jumped down from the crate and approached the stall. "Tell you what, Josie, I'll stop teasing you about your size if you can answer one simple question." Josie knew better than to engage, but Danny grabbed a pie from the display, her best cherry pie, and held it hostage. "The question is this: has anyone ever loved you? Has anyone in your entire life ever looked at you and thought, 'Yes, I love that fat, ugly girl'?" The crowd had gone silent now, sensing that Danny had crossed from mockery into genuine cruelty, but no one intervened. They just watched. Give me back the pie, Josie said, her voice shaking. Answer the question first. Has anyone ever loved you? Danny, that's enough. Mrs. Paulson finally spoke up, but weakly, still more concerned with not making a scene than protecting her employee. I'm just asking an honest question, because looking at her, I can't imagine. Enough. The single word cut through the square like a gunshot. Every head turned toward the source. A man stood at the edge of the crowd, having apparently just arrived on horseback. He was massive, at least 6'4", with shoulders that seemed to block out the sun. His clothing marked him as a mountain man. Buckskin jacket, worn but well-maintained pants, boots built for rough terrain. His face was weathered and scarred. His dark hair hung past his shoulders, and his beard was thick and untrimmed. But it was his eyes, ice blue and absolutely merciless, that made people step back instinctively. He was terrifying. He looked like violence personified, and he was staring directly at Danny Mitchell with an expression that promised pain. I said enough. His voice was deep, rough, carrying the kind of authority that came from surviving things that killed weaker men. You're going to give the lady back her pie, apologize for your disrespect, and then you're going to leave. Immediately. Danny tried to salvage his bravado. Who the hell are you to tell me? The mountain man moved with startling speed for someone his size. One moment he was standing 20 feet away. The next, his hand was wrapped around Danny's wrist, the one holding the pie, squeezing hard enough to make the younger man gasp in pain. I'm Wyatt Blackwood, the man said quietly, his voice somehow more dangerous for its calmness. I trap in the Bitterroot Range. I come to Sweetwater twice a year for supplies, and I have zero tolerance for cowards who torment people weaker than themselves. She's not, I wasn't. You were asking if anyone had ever loved her, mocking her size, humiliating her in front of the entire town. That's not humor. That's cruelty. Wyatt's grip tightened. Now give her back the pie. Danny hastily placed the pie on the stall, his face white with pain and fear. Wyatt released him and turned to the crowd. Anyone else got something to say about this woman? Anyone else want to make jokes about her appearance, her worth, her right to exist peacefully? Silence. The crowd that had been so eager to laugh moments ago now found the ground intensely fascinating. Thought not. Cowards always shut up when someone stands up to them. Wyatt's ice blue eyes swept over everyone within sight. You should all be ashamed. Every single one of you. Standing here watching a young woman get tormented and doing nothing. Some of you even laughing. He turned to Mrs. Paulson. You employ her? Yes, Mrs. Paulson stammered. Then protect her. When someone harasses your employee, you shut it down immediately. You don't wait for someone else to do your job. His voice hardened. If I hear she's been mistreated again, I'll come back, and I won't be nearly as polite. Finally, he turned to Josie, and his expression softened completely. Miss, I apologize for the commotion, but no one deserves to be treated the way you were just being treated. Josie stared at him, tears still streaming down her face, unable to find words. This stranger, this terrifying mountain man, had just defended her when no one else would, had stood up to her tormentors, had called out the entire town for their complicity. Thank you, she finally whispered. Wyatt nodded once. I need to buy supplies. I'll be at the general store if anyone needs me. But I suggest folks spend the rest of this celebration thinking about how they treat their neighbors. He walked away, leading his horse, and the crowd parted before him like water around a stone. The celebration resumed, but the mood had shifted. People spoke in hushed voices, many looking ashamed. Danny and his friends had disappeared entirely. And Josie stood behind her stall, still shaking, but feeling something she'd almost forgotten existed. Hope that not everyone in the world was cruel. An hour later, Business at the bakery stall had slowed. Most people seemed uncomfortable making eye contact with Josie after Wyatt's intervention. Mrs. Paulson had left early, claiming a headache but really just wanting to escape the awkwardness. Josie was packing up remaining pies when a shadow fell across the stall. "Miss, might I buy one of those cherry pies?" She looked up to find Wyatt Blackwood standing there, his intimidating presence somehow less frightening up close. He'd removed his heavy jacket in the heat, revealing a simple linen shirt that showed arms marked with scars, the kind earned through hard living, not foolish accidents. "Of course, 50 cents. Josie carefully wrapped the pie, her hands trembling slightly. Wyatt placed a silver dollar on the counter. "Keep the change, and I'll take one of those apple pies too if you've got them." "You don't have to overpay." "I'm not overpaying. I'm paying what quality baking is worth." He met her eyes directly. "These look excellent, better than anything I've had in months of mountain living." Josie wrapped the second pie, hyper-aware of every movement, every potential criticism. But Wyatt just watched patiently, not rushing her, not commenting on her size or appearance. "Can I ask you something?" Josie said quietly as she handed over the pies. "Of course." "Why did you help me? You don't know me." Wyatt was quiet for a moment, his ice-blue eyes distant. "Because I watched a crowd of people mock someone for being different, and I've been on the receiving end of that kind of cruelty. It's cowardly and wrong, and I'm too old to pretend it isn't." He gestured to the scars on his arms. "I got these fighting a grizzly that attacked my camp 5 years ago. Killed it, but barely. For months after, when I'd come to settlements for supplies, people would stare, would whisper. Some would openly mock me, saying I looked like a monster." Josie looked at the scars. Ugly, yes, but also proof of incredible survival. "You're not a monster." "No, I'm a man who survived something terrible, but people saw the scars and assumed they knew my whole story, assumed I was less than human because I didn't look the way they expected." He met her eyes. "Sound familiar?" Josie nodded, tears threatening again. "So when I see someone else being judged for their appearance rather than their character, I speak up, because I know what that feels like. And I know it's wrong. Most people just ignore it, or participate in the mockery. Most people are cowards. It's easier to join the crowd than stand against it." Wyatt's voice was matter-of-fact, not judgmental. "But easy isn't the same as right." They stood in silence for a moment, the celebration continuing around them but feeling distant, irrelevant. "I should let you get back to your celebration," Wyatt finally said, picking up his pies. "I'm not celebrating, I'm working. And when I'm done, I'll go back to my room above the bakery and hide until I have to face people again. That's not living. That's just surviving. It's all I know how to do." Wyatt studied her for a long moment. "Can I offer you something different?" "What do you mean?" "I need help at my mountain station. I trap furs, which requires me to be away from my cabin for days at a time. While I'm gone, things fall apart. Equipment breaks, food spoils, the place becomes a disaster. I could use someone to help manage it, cook, organize, help process pelts, maintain the cabin." Josie's heart raced. "You're offering me a job?" "Employment, fair wages, $20 a month plus room and board. It's hard work, isolated, and mountain living is brutal. But you'd be valued for your contributions, not mocked for your appearance." "Why would you offer this to me? You don't know if I can even do the work. I know you bake excellent pies, which means you're capable and detail-oriented. I know you've survived years of public mockery without becoming cruel yourself, which speaks to character. And I know you're still standing here instead of having fled in shame, which tells me you're stronger than you think." His voice softened. "That's enough for me." Josie's mind whirled. Leave Sweetwater? Leave the only town she'd ever known, go into the mountains with a stranger? It was insane. But what did she have here? A job where she was underpaid and overworked. A room barely bigger than a closet. A town that treated her as a joke, a target, barely human. I need to think about it, Josie said carefully. Of course. I'll be in town through tomorrow morning, stocking up on supplies. If you decide to come, meet me at the livery stable at dawn. If not, I wish you well. He tipped his hat and walked away, leaving Josie standing in the summer heat, contemplating the most terrifying decision of her life. That night, Josie lay in her small room above the bakery, staring at the ceiling. Through the thin walls, she could hear Mrs. Paulson snoring, oblivious to Josie's turmoil. What would happen if she left? Practically speaking, Mrs. Paulson would need to find another baker's assistant, harder than it sounded, since she paid poorly and worked people to exhaustion. The town would gossip about Josie running off with that mountain man, probably inventing scandalous explanations. But would anyone actually miss her? Would anyone notice her absence as a loss rather than just fodder for gossip? The honest answer was no. She had no family. Her parents had died when she was 12, and she'd been passed between reluctant relatives until she was old enough to work. She had no friends. Hard to make friends when you're the constant target of mockery. She had no romantic prospects. No man in Sweetwater had ever looked at her with anything but disgust or cruel amusement. She had nothing holding her here except fear of the unknown. And fear, Josie was beginning to realize, was a terrible reason to stay anywhere. At dawn, she climbed out of bed and gathered her few possessions: 2 changes of clothes, her mother's wedding ring, the only family heirloom she owned, a small Bible, and the $11 she'd managed to save despite Mrs. Paulson's meager wages. She left a note for Mrs. Paulson. I quit. Thank you for the employment. Josie. Then she walked through the quiet streets to the livery stable, her heart pounding with every step. Wyatt was there, loading supplies onto 2 horses. When he saw Josie, something that might have been relief flickered across his weathered face. You came. I did, though I might regret it. You might. Mountain living is hard, and I'm not easy company. I'm rough, blunt, and used to solitude. His ice-blue eyes were serious. But I promise you fair treatment, honest wages, and respect. That's more than you had here. When do we leave? Right now, before the town wakes up and tries to stop you. Wyatt helped Josie onto a sturdy gray mare, surprisingly gentle despite his size and rough appearance. Then he mounted his own horse, a large bay gelding that looked built for mountain terrain. They rode out of Sweetwater as the sun rose, leaving behind everything Josie had ever known. She looked back once as the town disappeared behind hills and trees. She felt no regret, only relief and a strange, fragile hope. The journey took 4 days through increasingly rugged terrain. Wyatt proved to be a patient teacher, showing Josie how to make camp, identify edible plants, recognize animal tracks, and navigate by landmarks. He also proved to be surprisingly good company. He wasn't chatty. Long silences were common. But when he did speak, it was thoughtful, informative, never condescending. See that tree? He'd say, pointing to a twisted pine. Storm damage. Happened 3 years ago. I use it as a marker for the trail. Or, that bird song? Red-tailed hawk. Means there's prey nearby. Probably rabbits. Good hunting ground. Josie absorbed everything, her quick mind cataloging information that might prove useful. And slowly she began to relax, to feel less like a burden and more like a student learning valuable skills. On the 4th day, they crested a ridge and looked down into a hidden valley. A cabin sat nestled against the mountainside, with a stream running nearby and forest surrounding it. Behind the cabin stood a workshop, a smokehouse, and what looked like storage sheds. "Home," Wyatt said simply. The cabin was larger than Josie expected. 2 main rooms plus a loft. The first room served as kitchen and common area, with a massive fireplace, a sturdy table, and shelves lined with supplies. The second room, Wyatt explained, would be hers. "It's got a real bed, a chest for your things, and a window with actual glass. Privacy when you want it." Josie looked at the room. Modest by any standard, but clean and comfortable and entirely hers. No more cramped attic space. No more listening to Mrs. Paulson snore through thin walls. "The loft is mine," Wyatt continued. "Main room is shared. But I'm gone a lot, checking trap lines, hunting, scouting. You'll have plenty of solitude if you want it." "What exactly will I be doing?" "Cooking, preserving food, helping process pelts, maintaining the cabin and equipment, managing supplies. Basically, keeping this place functional while I handle the actual trapping." He paused. "It's hard work, but honest work, and I'll pay you fairly." Over the following weeks, Josie discovered that mountain living was indeed brutal. The work was relentless, hauling water from the stream, chopping firewood, learning to cure hides and preserve meat, maintaining equipment and cooking meals that could sustain people doing hard physical labor. But it was also profoundly satisfying. There was no one to mock her size as she carried heavy loads up the hill from the stream. No one to make cruel jokes when she ate heartily after a long day's work. Just Wyatt, who treated her contributions with genuine appreciation and never once commented on her appearance except in practical contexts. "You're strong," he'd say after she'd hauled a particularly heavy load. "Good instincts for the work." Or, "This meal is excellent, best I've eaten in years." Simple praise, honestly given. It meant more than Josie could express. She also discovered talents she'd never known she possessed. She had a natural aptitude for organizing supplies, creating systems that made everything more efficient. She developed new preservation techniques that extended the life of their food stores. She even learned to shoot, though her aim needed work. "You're a natural problem solver," Wyatt observed one evening after she'd redesigned his entire pelt processing system. "Makes sense. You had to solve the problem of survival in a hostile environment. Now you're just applying those skills to different challenges." Josie felt herself transforming. Her body grew stronger, muscles developing from constant physical work. Her confidence increased as she mastered new skills. Most importantly, she began to believe what Wyatt kept telling her, that her worth wasn't determined by her size, but by her character, capabilities, and contributions. But 6 months into her employment, something happened that tested everything they'd built. Winter had locked the mountains in ice and snow when 3 men appeared at the cabin. Wyatt was out checking trap lines, leaving Josie alone. The men were rough types, trappers by their clothing, but the predatory kind who took what they wanted rather than earning it honestly. Josie recognized the type immediately. Bullies who'd found wilderness living suited their violent tendencies. "Well, well," the lead man said, dismounting with a cruel grin. "Heard Bear Blackwood had taken on a helper. Didn't expect her to be so substantial." His companions laughed. Josie's stomach knotted with familiar dread, but she stood her ground on the porch, Wyatt's rifle held firmly in her hands. "Mr. Blackwood isn't here. You should leave." "Oh, we know he's not here. That's why we came now." The man stepped closer. "See, we've been watching this place. Heard Blackwood pays in gold. Figure he's got a nice stash hidden somewhere. So, here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell us where he keeps it, and we'll be on our way." "There's no gold here. He keeps his earnings in town." "Liar. Mountain men don't trust banks. Now tell us where." "She told you there's no gold. I suggest you believe her." Wyatt's voice came from behind the men, who spun around to find him standing 30 feet away, having approached silently through the snow. His rifle was raised and pointed directly at the leader's chest. "Blackwood! We were just threatening my employee and attempting robbery. I heard everything from the trees." Wyatt's voice was ice cold. "You've got 10 seconds to get on your horses and leave. After that, I start shooting." "You can't kill all 3 of us." "No, but I'll definitely kill you first. Want to test whether your friends care enough to avenge you?" The men exchanged glances, clearly calculating odds. Wyatt's reputation was legendary. He'd survived things that killed other men, and he was known to be absolutely merciless with threats to his territory or people. "We're leaving," the leader finally said, backing toward his horse. "But this isn't over." "Yes, it is. If I see any of you within 10 miles of this cabin again, you won't leave alive. That's not a threat. That's a promise." After they rode away, Wyatt immediately turned to Josie. "You handled that well. Stood your ground, didn't panic, had the rifle ready. Good work. I was terrified. Being afraid and being weak are different things. You were afraid but still stood strong. That's courage." He paused. "I'm sorry you were put in that position. I should have been here." "You can't be everywhere, and I'm not helpless." "No, you're not." Wyatt's expression was serious. "But I think it's time we had a conversation about the future." They went inside, and Wyatt poured coffee while Josie's hands finally stopped shaking. "Those men will spread word that a woman is living here," Wyatt said. "More will come, thinking you're unprotected or that I'm keeping valuables. It puts you in danger." "So what do? "We have options. 1. I hire additional security, though that means more people around, less privacy. 2. You return to civilization, though I'd hate to lose your help. Or 3. He paused. 3. We marry. Legally. Makes it clear you're under my permanent protection, not just an employee who might be vulnerable. Discourages anyone from causing trouble." Josie stared at him. "You're proposing marriage as a security measure?" "I'm proposing partnership. Legal recognition of what we've already built. Mutual respect, shared work, companionship. It doesn't have to change our living arrangements or expectations. Just makes the protection official." That's the most unromantic proposal I've ever heard. "I'm not a romantic man. I'm a practical one. And practically speaking, marriage solves several problems." He looked at her directly. "But I'm also saying I value you, Josie. You've made this cabin a home. You've proven yourself capable, intelligent, and strong. If you're willing, I'd be honored to make this partnership permanent." Josie thought about her life 6 months ago. Cramped room, cruel mockery, no hope for anything better. Then she thought about her life now. Hard work but satisfaction. Respect instead of contempt. Genuine companionship. "Yes," she said. "I'll marry you." Wyatt smiled, a rare, genuine expression that transformed his scarred face. "Good. We'll ride to town when the thaw comes. Make it legal. Until then, nothing changes except peace of mind." But something had changed. They both felt it. What had started as employer and employee had evolved into genuine partnership. And with the proposal, they'd acknowledged what had been growing between them. Not just respect, but affection. Not just companionship, but love. 2 years later, Sweetwater prepared for another Independence Day celebration. But this year, something was different. A wagon rolled into town, driven by Wyatt Blackwood. Beside him sat Josie, no longer the frightened, mocked girl who'd left 2 years before, but a confident woman who'd found her strength. Word spread quickly. By the time they reached the main square, a crowd had gathered. Some curious, some uncomfortable, all wondering what had brought them back. Wyatt helped Josie down from the wagon, and people gasped. She wore a simple but well-made dress, Her face was healthy and tanned, and she moved with confidence that radiated from within. She was still large. Mountain living hadn't changed that, but she carried herself completely differently. Danny Mitchell was there, older now and somehow smaller seeming than Josie remembered. He started to say something, saw Wyatt's expression, and wisely closed his mouth. "Folks," Wyatt said, his voice carrying across the square. "We've come back for 2 reasons. First, to buy supplies. Second, to deliver a message." He gestured to Josie, who stepped forward. "2 years ago, I left this town believing I was worthless," Josie said, her voice clear and strong. "You all made sure I believed it, through mockery, cruelty, and indifference. But you were wrong. I'm not worthless. I'm strong, capable, and valuable. I always was. I just needed someone to show me." She took Wyatt's hand. "This man saw worth in me when none of you could. He offered respect when you offered contempt. He gave me opportunity when you gave me nothing but pain. And together we've built a life I never thought possible." Wyatt added, "We're not here for apologies. We're here to be an example. Josie isn't the only person in this town who's different, who doesn't fit society's narrow standards. The question is, will you keep mocking those people? Or will you finally learn that worth isn't measured by appearance?" The crowd was silent, shame written across many faces. Mrs. Paulson stepped forward. "Josie, I'm sorry for how I treated you, for underpaying you, for not protecting you from harassment. I was wrong." Others followed, halting apologies, awkward acknowledgments of past cruelty. Not everyone, but enough to matter. Josie accepted them with grace. "I forgive you. Not because you've earned it, but because holding on to anger would only hurt me. Learn from this. Be better to the next person who's different." They bought their supplies and left Sweetwater that afternoon, returning to their mountain home. As the town disappeared behind them, Josie felt no regret, only gratitude that she'd found the courage to leave and the wisdom to know she'd made the right choice. "Thank you," she said to Wyatt as they climbed into the mountains. "For what?" "For saying enough, for standing up when no one else would, for showing me my worth." "You already had worth, Josie. I just helped you see it." He smiled. "Besides, you've given me more than I gave you. You turned a cabin into a home, turned solitude into companionship, turned survival into living. I should be thanking you." They rode on toward their valley, toward home. 2 people who'd found in each other what the rest of the world had denied them. Respect, partnership, and love, built not on appearance but on character and shared strength. The town had mocked her. They'd told her nobody loved her. They'd treated her as worthless. But they'd been wrong. She was loved. She was valued. She was enough. And she'd built a life that proved it every single day.